Have you ever wondered if there's a scientific or theoretical explanation as to how manifestation might work? Could the key to harnessing the law of attraction lie in an unseen field of information that shapes reality? In this video, I'm going to explore how Rupert Sheldrake's theory of morphic resonance might provide an interesting way to understand manifestation. While the theory itself isn't directly about manifestation, it offers a new perspective as to how our thoughts and intentions might shape reality through informational fields. Hi everyone, my name's Georgia. I just finished studying a master's degree in consciousness, spirituality and transpersonal psychology. And in my free time, I love to study the links between science and spirituality. Now, one of my favourite topics to research is manifestation and how that relates to science. One of the more obvious examples is through neuroscience. The idea is that manifestation is maybe a phenomenon of our perception or how our mind works. Another way to link it to science is through quantum physics. Now, this kind of edges more into esoteric territory because it kind of links to this idea that manifestation isn't just a phenomenon of the mind. It suggests that instead manifestation might actually have a literal influence on physical reality. So there are some interesting correlations between that idea and some theories within quantum physics. Ultimately though, we don't know why manifestation works. I personally believe in it because of my own experience of it, but as far as, the theory underpinning it or the mechanisms underpinning it, no one knows how that would work. There is no scientific explanation for it currently. Now, one theory that I've never seen anyone relate to the law of attraction is morphic resonance. So in this video, I want to highlight some interesting correlations I think there are between the theory of morphic resonance and manifestation, because if morphic resonance is real, then it might explain how some important aspects of manifestation work. Now, just to be clear, morphic resonance is just a theory, it's not proven, so everything that I'm saying in this video is entirely speculative and it's correlations that I've picked out myself. Basically, this theory just might provide a new interesting lens through which to view manifestation, so hopefully you'll find it interesting too. So the first thing we need to understand is, what is morphic resonance? Now, if you want an in-depth explanation of the theory, then I actually went into it in my last video, so it might actually be worth watching that before this video, but I will give you a brief overview of it now. So the idea is that informational fields, called morphic fields, shape how things grow, behave, and even think. These fields basically act like blueprints, guiding everything from how a plant grows or how an atom gets its form, to how animals and humans behave and learn. So morphic fields contain patterns of information. And where do these patterns come from? They come from the systems or organisms that themselves are being guided by the fields. So that can be an animal, a human, a plant. It can be non-living systems like atoms and molecules. So it's this two-way process where a pattern experienced by one of these organisms or systems then exists within an accompanying morphic field. And the more that pattern occurs, the more it strengthens that morphic field, and that morphic field then influences other organisms or systems that are similar to them. So it's this two-way flow of information, and the more that pattern occurs, the more likely it is to happen again, because it will become stronger within the morphic field and have a greater influence. So to give you an example of this, let's imagine an animal is exhibiting a certain type of behaviour. That pattern of behaviour will exist as information within a morphic field. Now, other members of the same species can also tune into that same morphic field, so that pattern of information will influence other members of that same species. So the behaviour exhibited by the members of that species will contribute to the information within the morphic field, and it will also influence other members of the species through this process of morphic resonance. So think of morphic fields like blueprints, and morphic resonance as the process by which different organisms and systems contribute to that blueprint, but also draw from that blueprint and be influenced by it. And the more a particular pattern occurs, the stronger the blueprint becomes. So how does all of this relate to manifestation? We now need to look at how our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions might contribute to these patterns within morphic fields and help shape our reality in some way. So the first correlation I see between manifestation and morphic resonance is how our thoughts, beliefs and intentions will become strengthened through this process. So as I've already touched on, according to morphic resonance, patterns are strengthened through repetition. So the more a pattern occurs, the more deeply it becomes embedded within the morphic field and the stronger its influence becomes. So we as individuals have our own personal morphic fields, and morphic fields affect everything from physical form to behaviour to mental activity. So our own personal thoughts and actions and behaviours and beliefs, these all contribute to our own personal morphic field, in theory. So what I'm suggesting is the more that we focus on a particular desire, whether it be a new job or a new relationship, we are embedding that informational pattern within our own morphic field. And the more we focus on it, the stronger its influence should become, which theoretically should mean that these thoughts and these behaviours and these actions should become more natural to us over time. And this is similar to the concept of neuroplasticity, the idea that the more we think a certain thought, the more we strengthen the neural pathways associated with that thought, which makes the thought in turn then more natural for us to think. I'm suggesting the same kind of thing might be happening with morphic resonance if the theory is correct. Not only would repetition of certain thoughts strengthen the associated neural pathways, it might also strengthen the patterns within our morphic field. So through practices like affirmations and visualization and journaling, we might be reinforcing and strengthening these informational patterns. We might be making their influence stronger. And to give you an analogy for this, think of it like a path in a forest. The more that path is walked, the more defined it becomes. The same is true for our thoughts. The more we think a certain thought, the stronger the influence of that thought might become. Firstly through neuroplasticity, but also potentially through morphic fields if morphic resonance is real. Now, the second parallel I see between morphic resonance and manifestation is the potential to resonate with and potentially leverage collective morphic fields. Morphic fields aren't just personal, there are also collective morphic fields which are shaped by the thoughts and behaviours of many people over time. I already gave the example of how different members of a species would tune into the same morphic field, and humans are no exception to that. There are also going to be collective morphic fields that different humans can tune into. For example, there'll be a collective field for people who have learned the same skill. So for subsequent people trying to learn that same skill, it should become progressively easier because the experience of the people who have done it before exists within the morphic field to which they are able to tune into through morphic resonance. The experience of people trying to learn that skill accumulates within the morphic field. Now, what I'm suggesting in relation to manifestation is that there might be collective morphic fields around experiences that you're trying to manifest. So the experience of becoming a successful entrepreneur, for example, or the experience of finding a healthy and loving relationship. These are all experiences that so many people have had, so theoretically, according to morphic resonance, those experiences should exist within morphic fields that we're able to tap into, and the experiences within those fields will have been strengthened by all of those people who have experienced it before. So if this were to be true, then the question would be, how can we tune into these fields? How can we harness the experiences of people who have already succeeded at these things? Well, the way that morphic resonance works is on the basis of similarity. So previously, when I was talking about us having our own personal morphic fields, the reason we're able to keep tuning into our own morphic fields through morphic resonance is because we're similar to ourselves, right? There's no one on earth that we are more similar to than ourselves, so we are able to keep tuning into our own personal morphic field. Now, we can also harness this idea of similarity to tune into other morphic fields that we want to tune into. Of course, it would just happen more naturally with general morphic fields, which just apply to a species as a whole. So, for example, there will be a morphic field that governs the physical form of a human being, and all humans will be tuning into that morphic field. But theoretically, there could also be more specific morphic fields that we're tuning into on the basis of similarity. So, for example, if people are completing a certain puzzle, then other people who are also doing that puzzle will be tuning into the same morphic field. Their experience of every person doing that puzzle will be in one morphic field, and they can tune into it by virtue of also doing the same puzzle. So there's that element of similarity there. They're doing the same thing, which allows them to tune into the same morphic field. Another example, which I think Rupert mentioned in his book, is if you're trying to learn something like a nursery rhyme, if you want to maximize the morphic resonance, then you want to maximize the similarity in the way in which you're trying to learn that skill. So when it comes to a nursery rhyme, did the millions of people who already learnt that rhyme, did they do it through listening to it, or did they do it through reading it? If you want to maximize the resonance, then you should try and learn it in the way that most other people have learnt it, because then you can harness the learning that they've already done, which should make it easier for you to learn. So in terms of manifestation, if we want to align ourselves with a particular morphic field and harness the experience of those who have done something before us, then we want to maximize our similarity with those people. So if we're talking about someone who's been a successful entrepreneur, then we want to try and take similar actions to them, try and think the same thoughts that they'd be feeling, try and feel the same feelings that they'd be feeling. So when it comes to manifestation, we're always talking about embodying what it is you want to become. So if you want to become that successful entrepreneur, then you yourself need to embody a successful entrepreneur. And this makes so much sense in light of the theory of morphic resonance. The more that we embody that thing that we're trying to become, then the more we're going to be able to resonate with the people who have already succeeded at that previously. And that should make it easier for us to also achieve the same goal. So you need to be asking yourself, how do these people think, feel, and act? If you're trying to build a successful business, but all you're thinking about is how you don't have any of the skills needed to do any of those things, then you're not going to be resonating with that morphic field. Or if you're trying to manifest a loving relationship and all you're doing is thinking thoughts of loneliness, of not wanting to be around people, or if the actions you're taking are not putting yourself out there, nothing you're doing is aligning you with those people who would have a healthy relationship, then theoretically, according to morphic resonance, you probably wouldn't be aligning yourself with that morphic field. You wouldn't be resonating with their experience. So if we're able to do this and we're able to embody whatever it is that we're trying to become, then we should be able to tune into these collective morphic fields. And this would mean that we're not starting from scratch. We'd be tuning into these well-established patterns of activity and information that could help us to manifest more easily. Now, the third correlation that I see between morphic resonance and manifestation has to do with limiting beliefs. Now, just as positive patterns of activity can be reinforced within a morphic field, negative patterns can also be reinforced. So this might be negative thought patterns or negative behaviours that we have. They would work in exactly the same way, and the more that we do those things, the more we would strengthen that pattern within a morphic field, and the stronger its influence would become. So this could be in our personal morphic field. Maybe we have a negative thought pattern that we're strengthening within our own personal morphic field, and again, this is also similar to the idea of neuroplasticity. But it also could be to do with collective fields too. Maybe we have certain patterns of behaviour or thoughts that tune us into collective morphic fields that have negative patterns within them. So we'd be resonating with an outcome that we don't want to happen. If we start resonating with morphic fields that contain patterns that we don't want to experience, maybe these could act as limitations or barriers preventing us from manifesting whatever it is that we're trying to manifest. So if you're someone who has dreams of creating a business, but you're constantly thinking thoughts of failure, then maybe you're resonating with a morphic field of people who maybe haven't managed to make their dream business a reality. We already know that if we want to manifest effectively, then it's essential to stop reinforcing old thought patterns that don't serve us and don't serve our manifestations. And this whole idea of morphic resonance just kind of provides a new lens to view that through, another way in which these thought patterns might be detrimental to us. So what we would want to do is, of course, shift our focus and our intentions and beliefs away from the thought patterns and actions and behaviours that aren't serving us, and instead make sure that we're trying to embody whatever it is that we are trying to manifest, so that we can tune into the morphic fields that will empower us instead and will help us on our journey. If morphic fields do exist, we may as well tune into the ones that are going to help us manifest, as opposed to the ones that are going to make everything more difficult for us. So ways to do this would be typical manifestation techniques, affirmations, visualization, anything that is going to reprogram our mind to the beliefs and intentions that we want to have, so that we can tune into the right morphic fields, so that we can harness the experience of those who have succeeded before us. So in summary, if morphic resonance is real, then maybe one of the ways in which manifestation works is through creating informational patterns that can be strengthened and which influence future outcomes, whether that be your thoughts, your behaviour, your actions. The more you focus on your desire and align your thoughts, emotions and actions, the better able you'll be able to tune into a morphic field of other people who've already achieved what it is that you're trying to manifest. And so the better you'll be able to harness the experience of those who've come before you through Morphic Resonance. I hope you found this video interesting. If you'd like to explore more ways in which manifestation relates to different areas of science, then I have some other videos touching on these topics. So I'll link one here about how quantum physics relates to manifestation. So thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next one.